What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Player Pool. Going to be breaking down a three-game special Saturday slate with Spread Astaire. And there's a spot in the Cincinnati game where there's a position that is very unlikely to be popular this week. And I think it's a way that we can exploit and get a little bit different with building our lineups. And I'm going to get into it with Spread right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at PumaCom here with Heat Seeker Sports. I'm joined by Spread Astaire, and you're watching Player Pool. We're going to break down a special Saturday slate. We got a three-game slate coming up on Saturday, and we're going to do the main slate on this one. We're going to break down the whole three games. And Spread, glad to have you on again. It's been a little while since our jobs aren't letting our schedules sync up. But how's it going, man? What's been going on?
I'm doing good, and isn't this a weird week of football? I mean, I hate to be the old man, but it just feels like the 17th week was so unnecessary because now, and of course, this is a fantasy show, so I can speak for fantasy purposes. The fantasy playoffs are just whack, and this whole week of football is just whack, even from a betting perspective, where like the Chiefs had to play like 10 games in 3 days, and the Ravens. I mean, it's just. This 17th game was completely unnecessary, but because of it, we have an interesting three-game slate, and I'm looking forward to breaking that down.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm kind of torn on it because it gives us an extra week, but at the same time, it's like you're saying, it's like a lot of these games are going to be meaningless, and a lot of these teams are just getting banged up from the extra game that they have to play, and it's not necessarily equating to the most quality football games, but it gives us another DFS slate to break down at least, and we got some interesting ones here. Before we break it down, make sure to hit that like button, get us to 30 likes. I'll put my favorite picks in the comment section once we get closer to lock. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm at about 1430 right now, looking to hit 1500. So please help out with getting to that 1500 mark. You're going to want to subscribe anyways to sign up for the alerts. When you sign up for the alerts, when these shows get posted, then, like they get posted at random times. It's not really a set schedule. You'll get the alert for when it gets posted and you won't miss them. So Spread, let's break down this first game. I'm going to switch over to a screen share here. I figure we go game by game and just kind of give a brief overview of each game, and then we can go more in depth with the players from each game. But Spread, what's your thoughts here on the Chargers versus the Patriots game? We'll start with that one.
So I'll start from the betting perspective. It's an interesting game. When you open up the lines on Monday morning, your first thought is like, oh, wow, the Chargers, who are a legitimate playoff team, are only laying 4, and I'll check right now because I'm pretty sure that's moved. But right, and this is a smash spot, right? Like a playoff team versus a team that is just, man. I mean, New England's had problems. I mean, one positive things for New England, they definitely found their quarterback, but it doesn't seem like they have the right coach, and they have absolutely nothing around him. They're not 1 or 2 players away. This team is 10 to 15 players away. And I think the big issue is, do you fire the coach after the first year? So saying all this, right, you're thinking, just bet the Chargers nice and easy, right? I'm checking the line, moved a half a point. It's -4.5 right now, the total 42.5. But this is also a tricky spot for the Chargers. Their offense has struggled. We know Herbert's battling injuries. We've seen how much juice they lost because Harbaugh wants to run first. Without J.K. Dobbins, they're really struggling. Great offensive line, and they're getting holes. Kind of throwing the running backs don't matter out the window, however, because you see the Chargers winning their blocks, and they're still not getting huge run pickups, and that's stalling their offense out because it's too many 3rd and longs. And then we talk about their lack of running backs. They don't have a lot of wide receivers either. Feels like it's Lad McConkey or bust over there. Quentin Johnston's hit or miss, and he's had some good games, but you definitely can't rely on him. And now we're traveling across the country. It's a team from Los Angeles playing in cold weather. Doesn't necessarily seem like a great situation for the Chargers here. So after initially looking and thinking I would be on the Chargers, I'm actually leaning towards the Patriots keeping this game close. But I think the more important thing here is if they do keep this close and cover, this game's going under. The total's 42.5. So it's already the lowest total on the board for the slate we're doing. This might be the game that we completely leave off or we only use one player from.
The interesting thing about this game, I think I heard rumblings that J.K. Dobbins was going to be playing in this one. I think he had, I can't remember if he had a full practice or like a partial practice, but he's questionable and he's going to be coming off IR. And Gus Edwards is out, so I think that they're going to bring back J.K. Dobbins this week, which would make it a little bit more interesting because the way that it looks from a fantasy points perspective is that the Chargers have a pretty good matchup as far as their strengths because they want to run the ball, and New England's giving up 24.5 DraftKings points a game to the running back position, and they want to throw to Ladd McConkey. And the Patriots are giving up 13.5 DraftKings points a game to the slot position. So it seems like from a strength versus weakness perspective, the Chargers are pretty set up here. Putting aside the weather and all that, travel and all that kind of stuff. But what do you think of that spread?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Of course, we're actually in the weekend, so it's weird. Let's see. Dobbins says IR on here. The latest update that DraftKings provides says questionable. Here's the thing with Dobbins returning. Do we think that he'd really be 100% if he comes back?
Yeah,
I can understand, like, if the team wasn't doing very good, they wouldn't bring him back to his 100%, but they're probably rushing him out there. I wonder how effective he will be. Even if he does play.
Yeah, I mean the thing with Dobbins too is we got Kamani Vidal. I think a lot of people were thinking it was going to be Kamani week, but if Dobbins is going to be back, this is where it's going to be interesting for making your decisions at the running back position because this is a really good matchup for running backs. And if Dobbins gets announced in and we see that ownership swing heavily towards Dobbins, then Vidal is going to be interesting. But if Dobbins gets announced in and people are committed to Vidal, then Vidal's going to, or Dobbins is going to be interesting. So I think the situation here with it being such a good matchup for running backs and probably like apart from the Rams matchup against Arizona, it's the best running back matchup on the slate. So that's going to make it interesting, especially with the uncertainty around Dobbins and his usage, what his usage is going to be, and then Kamani Vidal being kind of the mystery box.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how Vidal works out there. Is that a player that you be targeting, or do you still think that Dobbins is the way to go?
I think that personally, I think Dobbins right now, but I want to see what the beat reports are saying about it. I want to get a little bit more information on it, but right now I'd be leaning towards Dobbins, especially on FanDuel. If you go over to FanDuel, I think he's like 4K on FanDuel. So he's a really good deal over there. He's almost a no-brainer on FanDuel if he plays, assuming that he's going to play. Like this is all me assuming that he's going to play. But Vidal, I think would be almost a lock if Dobbins is not going to play or if he's going to be limited in any way. I think Vidal at 4,800 is a really good price for a potential starting running back on the Chargers, a team that we know loves to run the ball against a Patriots team that is bleeding points to the running back position, and the Chargers are just highly motivated. They need to win this game, so. I do think that Vidal would be a good play if Dobbins is out or if we know that he's going to be limited in any way.
Yeah, my problem with Vidal, I mean, we haven't really seen much production from him. He had one good game in week 6. But even with Dobbins out, he hasn't really been that good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
you look
it's
at these fantasy point numbers, it's rough, man. And he's had plenty of opportunities.
yeah, that's true. Like, I mean, but it's it's against the Patriots defense. It's kind of like you gotta decide if you want to take that risk or not. But there are other good running backs on the slate. But this is going to be an interesting spot, a good decision point for the slate, and it's one of those situations where you want to keep an eye on ownership. And I can get a look real quick at the ownership on this situation. Vidal
Yeah,
is
what do you think
looking
that's
at.
going to come in at? That might be a deciding factor.
I see Vidal at 1.6% ownership
Yeah,
on
I think that
DK.
makes him more attractive, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing what I'm going to do in a bunch of entries, right? Maybe if you're doing a single bullet. So here's my final verdict. If you're doing a single bullet, I want to play him.
Yeah.
If you're making multiple lineups, I think you have to consider him.
Yeah. And
And
Dobbins
you
might.
know what'd suck if you put him in there and you see just Dobbins rip off a run right at the beginning, right? And you're like, we are in trouble.
Yeah. I think if you're playing Vidal, you're basically assuming that he's going to get, like he's not going to get the full workload. He's probably going to split carries with Dobbins. You're playing Vidal mainly to hope that Dobbins is limited or not playing, but it looks like he's going to be playing. His ownership is projected at around 37%. So, like, if you're playing Vidal, you're basically hoping that Dobbins is limited and Vidal is able to break off a couple and become the hot hand in this situation.
Yeah.
But he's
All
cheap.
right. Who else do you like in this game? Are you running back anything from the Patriots side?
The Patriots are, interesting situation. I don't really. The Chargers defense has been weak against the wide receiver and the slot positions. But with the Patriots, it's just kind of a crapshoot with these guys. Going back to what you said on the coaching staff, like they've also built like a team with no weapons. I mean, Douglas, it would be interesting in the slot, but he doesn't really put out any fantasy output or anything significant. And then Booty is kind of the same way. He did have a 20 DraftKings point week last week, but it's kind of tough to plug in either of these guys. The Chargers giving up 24.8 DraftKings points a game to wideouts, which is like one of the best spots in the game here for wideouts. And they're also giving up 16.9 to the slots, which is also one of the best spots for wideouts. But this is like the last 4 games. Let's see who the Chargers have played the last 4 games to get those like huge numbers. Denver, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, and Baltimore have put up those. And Cincinnati is probably what helped to put up like a lot of these points against the team. So I do think that these guys are playable. They're cheap. We're seeing Douglas at 4,300, Booty at 4K, and Bourne even at 3,300. Bourne, we've seen him get 2 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets, 5 targets, 5 targets. So like I think these guys would be probably rotational if you have a spot where you're left with, like 4,500 or something like that, and you want to rotate these guys in. But what are your thoughts on these guys, Spread?
I think that if I was to avoid a team this week, I'm fine just completely fading the Patriots and the old. If they beat me, they beat me. I guess you could kind of consider Drake May at quarterback, but normally when we're doing something like that, right, we're assuming, oh, this one team's going to get a big lead, and then Drake May is going to work against the prevent, and they're going to be down by 21, and they're just going to be playing against the clock and not the other team. I don't see Los Angeles being able to build the lead like that. So I don't think he's going to get those easy garbage time throws and statistics that we would usually get in a matchup between a playoff team and a team drafted in the top 10. So that's why I'm kind of fine staying away from those guys. If there's any other gems in this game, like maybe Hunter Henry, but at 4,200, is he really standing out to you? It feels like they priced him appropriately. You mentioned Butte already. I mean, he's worth the risk at 4K, but it's not someone I'm putting in my core or building around every single week here. Is there any maybe gems here at the bottom of this list that I'm leaving out?
Austin Hooper, maybe. Hooper's been getting a significant amount of the work for the like as far as the tight end position in New England. I'll check right quick and see if Rich Rebar had a note on them. Let's see. Chargers have been stingy defending tight ends, allowing 6.3 yards per target and a league low 0.9 touchdown rate to the position. So, that's Rich Rebar's note on the tight ends. Like I don't really see like anything I'd be interested in, with the tight end position for New England. I think it's mainly, if you want to decide on, rotating one of those wide receivers out, I think that's the main, what would be the main target for the New England side. But like Spread said, they could be a team just to avoid completely, unless you want to use Drake May and hope that he's able to do something, because they have the Chargers have given up some big games to some of these running quarterbacks like Will Levis and Bo Nix and Lamar Jackson, who scores a lot against anybody, but Levis and Nix both had decent games against them. They're both the similar type of quarterback. So, Drake May, I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to pay off his price.
All right. So there's some consideration for Drake May. And like I said, of all the Patriots players, he probably stands out the most to me.
Yeah. You could run him naked too. Like you could run Drake May naked.
Oh, I think, I think I'm going to.
Yeah, because he's cheap. He's cheap on top of that. So what was the price on Drake May? Drake May is 5,800. We're looking at some decent games. Like if you look at his past 5 games, he's pretty much hit 20 DraftKings points in. Or come close to 20 DraftKings points in 4 out of those 5. So he's good pretty much for, maybe 20 DraftKings points in this game, depending on how things play out. And I do like McConkey and as a run back and a potential, like one of those running backs as a potential run back too.
Yeah. All right. But, well, yeah. I don't know if I like McConkey that much. Let's move on, and we'll double back. I think this is my least favorite game of the slate.
Cool.
Maybe we'll come back when we're filling in on guys that we're really targeting here, because I'm targeting some guys here in this next game, Simon. And of course, you're talking about the Denver Broncos and the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati has been all offense, no defense. It's exactly what we love when we're building these lineups, Simon. How are you approaching this one?
Cincinnati versus Denver. This is probably going to be the most popular game on the slate. Good reason for that. Let's see what the total is. Looking at a total of 49.5 that I see spread with Cincinnati as 3-point favorites. Is that in line with what you see on this game?
Yeah, I got -3 juiced to the Bengals, though. This will probably be 3.5. With the way these offshore markets looking, I got a total of 50.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's going to be the highest scoring game on the slate. They got a tight spread. And I do think that, both these teams are playing for their playoff lives. Denver has a little bit more secure spot, but Cincinnati needs some miracles to happen for them to get in, but they're still going to play hard in this one with their season on the line. And, Bengals are a pride team. So they want to make sure that they're winning handily. They're going to be, putting their feet on the gas in this one too, if they can, against this Denver defense. Denver's defense giving up, let's see, Looks like they've been a little bit more susceptible recently. They're giving up 23 DraftKings points a game to the wideout position. So that's going to make Higgins and Chase interesting. Giving up 11.5 to the slot, 22.4 to running backs, and 11.7 to tight ends. All those are middling except for the wideout position, which is a like above average matchup for Cincinnati there. And then the quarterbacks are getting 15.8 DraftKings points a game against Denver, which is among the worst in the league. But it's Joe Burrow, and he's pretty much matchup proof anyways. So it's really a matter of if you think that Denver is going to be able to make this game flow towards the over. But what are your thoughts there, Spread? What do you make of that situation?
So something that I think we should try to determine, because it's not always this way. Do you think that Surtain is going to be on Chase the whole time? Because if he is, should we be interested in, I'm talking about Jamar Chase. Of course, there's Chase Brown too. So now when I talk about Chase on the Bengals, we have to be more clear. But if he is, I think that opens up a lot of opportunities for T. Higgins and Chase Brown.
Yeah.
However, he doesn't always shadow the number one. Sometimes they do he doesn't like to go in the slot, so he'll stay outside. And sometimes they do the Belichick thing where they put him on the number two and they double the number one. So if Surtain's on T. Higgins,
that's what I think.
You don't want if that's what you think, because then I would take him out of my player pool.
Yeah, that's what Fantasy Points puts out kind of a defense, like a defender versus receiver chart, and they have T. Higgins as being shadowed by Pat Surtain. So yeah, I'm with Spread. I would probably take Higgins out and just run with Chase. And I think a big part of that is because Chase is running a lot of his routes in the slot. He runs 34% of his routes in the slot, and T. Higgins is only 20% in the slot. And obviously, with Surtain, he's going to be chasing the perimeter receiver. So that's going to be primarily T. Higgins running 80% of his routes in the perimeter. So they'll probably most likely just have him shadowing Higgins in this one, according to Fantasy Points.
Well, then I think this one's a lot easier. Let's go ahead and take Higgins out of our player pool and prioritize Jamar Chase and Chase Brown. Two players that we're really excited about. And then when we talked about the quarterback earlier, right? I mean, you're paying for Joe Burrow. I mean, one of the attractive reason to play Drake May would be that lower price tag at $7,200. What are your thoughts on Joe Burrow? Because that could be an interesting stack, but it's expensive.
Yeah, the problem with Joe Burrow is just I think for me is going to be the ownership on a 3-game slate where we have a bunch of different decent quarterback options. We're looking at Joe Burrow with a 20% ownership, which comes in right underneath Kyler Murray, who is shocking to me that Kyler Murray is going to be higher owned in this one, but he's also $1,200 cheaper. But yeah, Joe Burrow projecting to be right there at the top as far as ownership, and then Bo Nix is right under him. So between Burrow, Murray, and Nix, like those guys are eating up 60% of the ownership on this slate. So we're going to have opportunity, I think, with Stafford, Herbert, and May to kind of look to get a little bit different. And Stafford kind of stands out in the overall picture, but we'll get to him when we hit that game. But as far as Burrow, it's really going to depend on what the build looks like. Because if we can build a decent lineup with Joe Burrow, and we do have some sneaky spots where we can differentiate a little bit with the ownership, get one of these like low owned tight ends in to help us justify putting Burrow in there. But Burrow, what is it, Spread? He's gone like 7 straight games with 250 yards and 3 touchdowns or something like that. He broke some kind of a record.
All the other statistics, like if you look at some of the statistics that he's equal to, they're all on teams that were like 12-3, and I mean, it's just absolute crazy what he's doing in a loss. And obviously, a lot of that is on the defense, just giving up those crucial plays in the fourth quarter. I mean, how many times has Joe Burrow put them ahead with a couple minutes to go and walking off the field looking dejected? So, like I said earlier, though, this is just sets up to be the fantasy matchup of the day. And I think this is where DraftKings and this game that we're playing right now is interesting because we're leveraging the obvious with the ownership.
Right.
The obvious is stack this game. The ownership says, am I just going to be splitting with a whole bunch of people if that's the case? Or will it just be one little guy that didn't make me unique that I didn't get at the bottom? Because obviously if you do a Burrow Chase stack, you got to hit on that dumpster dive because you're not going to be able to build a balanced lineup.
And I think I have an interesting dumpster dive for us in this one, Spread.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it. What do you got?
So a couple weeks ago when Cincinnati was playing against Tennessee, Chigakonkwo at that point hadn't done shit for the season, right? He'd just been like just forgotten man, right? And Cincinnati gives up 17 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. So I plugged Chigakonkwo into my lineup to talk him up on the show. And Chigakonkwo ended up going off. He ended up getting like 10 targets out of nowhere, seemingly out of nowhere. But if you paid attention to the matchup, Chigakonkwo wasn't all that surprising. I had him as a going with an anytime touchdown in my underdog video, and he actually had a ball off his fingertips in the end zone. Should have been a catch. Would have hit on that anytime touchdown, which would have been crazy. But yeah, Okonkwo out of nowhere against these Bengals, and we're looking at the Denver tight ends, and they are a bunch of scrubs. We're looking at Troutman, Krull, and Adkins. They're all like under 2,800 on top of it. Krull is running the most routes. These guys are basically splitting snaps. They got about 30% each. Krull is running the most routes, and I think he has the most targets. I think Troutman is the one that people are most familiar with. Troutman had a touchdown a couple weeks ago. He had another big game back in week 8 against Carolina. As far as Krull goes, Krull has not had a big game yet, but I think that he's the type of guy that we could be looking for on one of these 3-game slates to help us differentiate a bit. And on top of that, like the beauty of either Krull or Troutman, if you want to rotate those guys at tight end, is that nobody's going to be on them. Nobody's going to be owning these guys, and they're going to significantly differentiate your lineups from the field. Looks at Krull's ownership real quick. Krull's at 5.6 owned, and Troutman is about 0.1% owned. So, if we're looking at these dudes as potentially scoring a touchdown in a field that is weak for tight ends, most people are going to be trying to jam in like Stone Smart or Hunter Henry, or Trey McBride will be the most popular one. Trey McBride obviously could pay off, but you could put Krull in the tight end position and throw Trey McBride in the flex if you wanted to still play Trey McBride and still get some differentiation there. So there's a way that you can get different with these Joe Burrow stacks, and I think the Denver tight end is a good spot to look.
All right, Denver tight end, a sneaky way to dumpster dive. Also a good way to run it back if you do build that expensive Burrow Chase stack.
Yeah, for sure. Other than that, I think we're looking at Cortland Sutton. Devon Vele is going to have a decent matchup. Cincinnati's giving up 13.9 DraftKings points a game to the slot position. Cincinnati's giving up 19.9 to the quarterback position, so that's going to put Bo Nix in a good spot. So you could potentially, like, Bo Nix is going to be high owned too. You could double stack Bo Nix with like Sutton and Vele, or Sutton and one of these tight ends, and then run it back with Chase on the other side, and be setting yourself up. Both Chases, Chase Brown and Jamar Chase on the other side, and be setting yourself up a little bit different than the field there, and at the same time capitalizing on this high score game.
All right. Any other from this game that you're looking at, Simon?
For me, I mean, the only mystery spot remaining in this one is going to be this the situation with these running backs on the Denver side. Cincinnati is giving up 22.9 DraftKings points a game. That's about a middling matchup, but in a slate with like only 3 games, and we're looking at the Chargers have that that mystery box situation with the running back. Rams with Kyron Williams is probably the most secure spot with the Cardinals giving up 24.3 DraftKings points, but like on paper at least. But the Denver situation with running backs, do you have any thoughts on that spread?
You know, it sucks because I was so all in on McLaughlin in basketball, but estimate's the play here. If you play a Denver running back, I think you play Estimate, and I think there's a good chance he gets in the end zone. And if that's the case, he's going to pay off his price tag.
Yeah, and Estimate, we're looking at $5K for Estimate, 10.8 DraftKings points last week against the Chargers. We heard talk from Sean Payton earlier in the season about wanting to get these rookies more involved, and he specifically mentioned Estimate. Took him a couple weeks to start getting them incorporated, but it seems like they're trying to get away from Javonte Williams at this point. And Estimate and McLaughlin would be the I think the interesting targets.
Yeah, I think Estimate is a good way to round up your lineup.
Yeah. So, I mean, and let's take a look at the ownership on Estimate while we're here. Estimate. Looking at 0.1% ownership. I don't know how accurate these ownerships.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, but check back in on this. Like when we get closer to lock, we'll probably have more solid ownership projections there. But Estimate doesn't surprise me to see him super low owned, but I think he'd probably fall in that like 5% ownership as opposed to 0.1. So, all right, Spread, let's move on to this next game. We got the Cardinals versus the Rams. This one, I'm looking at a total of 47.5 with the Rams as 6.5 point favorites. But what's your thoughts on this game, and what do you like about this game?
This is another one that I think will target, and I think that's why so many people stay away from the first game. I think the first game really just sets up to be contrarian, right? Because nobody will play it, and if those players go off, you should be sitting by yourself. However, when we're looking at this game between the Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams, it is in Los Angeles. Well, I guess it doesn't matter where they're playing. Both teams, there's not going to be any weather issues here. So, of course, that's good for points. Both teams are more offensive oriented than defense. I know that Jonathan Gannon is considered to be a defensive coach, but when Arizona's had good performances this year, it's because they have been so explosive on that side of the ball. I think this game really interests me a lot. And I think that most of the ownership will be split between the second 2 games that we're talking about. You had mentioned Stafford earlier. Of course, he's a good option. And then Kyler is a little more expensive, and obviously that's because of the rushing upside. And my question for you is, the number 1 tight end this season, not named Brock Bowers, has been Trey McBride. He hasn't been able to get in the end zone, but he still should get the targets and receptions regardless in order to pay off his price tag. My only concern is that just going to be too chalky, and I put McBride in my lineup and everybody's got him, so it doesn't even help me. How are you approaching that?
The way I'm approaching this, and like just the Cardinals in general with Kyler Murray, is if we look over at the injury report, they're missing a whole bunch on their offensive line. They just put a bunch of their starters on IR. So they're going to be susceptible to this Rams pass rush, and they could end up getting slaughtered by this pass rush. But it could lead to Kyler scrambles and stuff like that. So it could be good for Kyler rushing. I don't understand why Kyler is the most highest owned guy on the slate, other than like his price, obviously $6K. but he really hasn't been that impressive this season. He's had a few big weeks, but I see against this Rams defense, I just think the Rams defense is the way that I'm going to go in this. But we do have that holdover from last week where Kyler Murray promised that he was going to get Trey McBride a touchdown, and he wasn't able to pull it off last week. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're just making an effort at this point to get Trey McBride a touchdown now that their season's over.
Yeah, I wonder. Is it technically over?
I think so. Yeah, I believe so. They put all those offensive linemen on IR, and I think that was a signal that they'd given up. But they might not mathematically be out. Let me double check that.
Yeah, I don't know if they are mathematically eliminated. I think it is pretty low chance. I got to ask you about Marvin Harrison as well. He's had a tough season. Do you think that there's a concerted effort to end the season right with Harrison, or do you think that it will just get more of the same from him?
So the Cardinals are eliminated. They don't have a chance of getting in the playoffs.
Okay, my mistake.
No, I mean, like I would have known, like honestly, without I knew that they were on the bubble last week, but I hadn't realized that they were completely eliminated. But Marvin Harrison, he did have that big week against the Rams earlier in the season. That was his only big game, pretty much, or his biggest game. He had 32 DraftKings points. He had 2 touchdowns against them, and that was week 2. That was when we all watched that game. We're like, "Oh, okay, this is the Marvin Harrison we were expecting," And then he didn't do anything really after that, except for maybe a couple games. But like I think if you look at what he's done these last few weeks. His biggest yardage total since week 8 looks like 60 yards. So that's like half the season. He only had 60 yards as his highest output. He did have a 111-yard game. But beyond that, he's only had 3 games all season over 60 yards. So, Harrison, I think they focus more on trying to get Trey McBride's numbers up as opposed to Harrison. Trey McBride being more of a veteran player, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Harrison do something in this game. Let's get an idea of his ownership, because that'll ultimately be the decision maker for Harrison. If he's too high owned, he's 30% owned. So a guy who hasn't done shit, like who's 30% owned, that's a little bit steep for me. I would rather play McBride, who's probably going to be like super owned as well. But I'll take that McBride ownership, I think, over Marvin Harrison's ownership.
Yeah, I mean, obviously McBride's where I want to go to. I think Harrison's been disappointing. I just wonder, and when you see that high ownership, if people are just thinking, like you said, the season's over. If we want this rookie to develop, let's try and end it on a high note, so he doesn't spend the whole offseason hearing about what a bust he is. So these are the type of things you do once you're eliminated. You're trying to develop your young players. You're trying to set the standard for next season. This isn't the NBA. There's no tanking. They might be a little less liberal in the injury room and just say, hey, you're not getting out there. Where I would think that some of those linemen you mentioned would be in the game if their season was still on the line, right? I mean, these guys play through everything in the NFL. But I think that's a nice little narrative that people are running with Marvin Harrison, and I'm actually happy to fade that narrative.
Fade the narrative of they're going to try to get him stats?
Yeah. And,
okay. Yeah, I'd be with you on that. Like,
because here's the deal: even if they do, does it even? It might not even be successful.
Right. Yeah. I'm
really surprised. He's supposed to be this generational prospect, and I've seen so many film breakdowns where they're showing that he's not getting separation. He's not running his routes cleanly, which is what he was supposed to be doing. And even on those contested catches, he hasn't been anything more than average. It's been an interesting season. I'm sure he's still got an opportunity here It's weird with wide receivers. They usually hit the ground running. But it wouldn't be the first case of a talented guy who had a rough rookie season, adjusted to the speed of play, and came back in the offseason. Speaking of which, I was thinking about this. How far do you think he drops in best ball?
I think he goes probably
Like
fourth or fifth round. Yeah,
That's what I
I
was
don't think
thinking
he's.
too.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to go super low, but it is an interesting case study for best ball spread, because we were talking about this in the beginning of the season between Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison. Everybody was crowning Harrison as the next Jamar Chase before the season even started, and I think like I faded him, like, and I think you faded him for the most part too, right, Spread?
Yeah, I mean, I have some because
Yeah.
once you start getting to the couple hundreds of drafts, you don't want to be left out altogether.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a guy that I was high on,
Right. Yeah. And it was one of those situations like, everybody talks with so much certainty in the preseason about like these players and these rookies and stuff like that. But even the guy with the best pedigree that we've seen in a few years coming into the draft, he's a like he doesn't do anything in his first season. It's going to give us a discount in season 2 though, so that's going to be the important thing there. Because when everybody jumps off the bandwagon, that's when you want to be jumping on these guys. Remember with Chase in the preseason a couple years ago, he started
I know that
dropping
was
some
one
balls.
of my worst takes ever. I remember I took the Cincinnati under that year.
Oh, you took the under? Yeah.
Yeah, when he was talking about, he can't catch the ball because it doesn't have the extra white lines, and I'm like,
yeah.
fade.
Yeah. That was I didn't hear that, but that's funny that he was saying something like that. But that was actually the year with playoff best ball. I went all in on the Bengals, and playoff best ball is going to be fun this year. There's a lot of teams that are getting overlooked in playoff best ball that could make a run. And it's not like last year. Last year felt like it was pretty much locked in on who was going to make it to the Super Bowl. But this year, it seems like there's all sorts of teams that could make it in, which is going to make playoff best ball interesting. So sign up for an underdog account using
That's
the promo
funny.
code.
I have a feeling it might just go back to the same usual suspects.
Oh, I think it could, but I see teams like
I wouldn't be surprised to see a Kansas City Philly rematch right now.
Dude, I got like my biggest owned team is going to be Philly and Kansas City right now. But I do think that Minnesota's in play. Tampa Bay is in play. The Rams are in play. These are high-powered offenses that could make some damage. No team is going to want to play those teams. Like who's going to want to play Tampa Bay in round 1? Like with the way that they're putting up 30 points a game. You know what I mean? Like, so those teams are going to be dangerous in the playoffs. And, I think it's easy to fall into that, just assuming that, like, oh, the Bills or the Chiefs are going to make it into that final round. And for the AFC, I think it's a little bit more predictable. But on the NFC side, I think the NFC, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty there, where it's wide open with any one of these teams could make it. So make sure to diversify with your player pool in best ball and sign up for an account using the promo code SEEK, SEEK. You're going to get 50% deposit match up to $1,000 when you do that, and check out the best ball shows when you can. But so spread other than Harrison and let's see, McBride, what do you think on the Rams side here?
Oh, I love the Rams here. Of course, you have to consider. I mean, we're just going with the big dogs, right? So I guess the tough decisions are, Puka or Cooper. Puka is 8,000 and Cooper is 6,500. I wonder, because of the price difference, if Cup is going to be more popular. What do you have for ownership projections there? And you can go a full Ram stack, but assuming you only choose one, who would you prefer at the prices?
So Puka's at 40% and Cooper is at 22. So that's going to put me on.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
And
I think maybe that gives me some more interest in Cup, knowing that, just especially if I do the Burrow Chase stack to start, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm looking to try and get elite performance for a little less money.
On top of that, Cooper Kupp has the better matchup as far as against Arizona's defense. They're giving up 13.9 DraftKings points a game to the slot position versus 13.1 to the wideouts, which is like a bottom 10. But Puka Nacua can beat a matchup like that. I'm not worried about Puka. I think though if we're looking to differentiate, Cooper Kupp is a guy that we want to pivot to when everyone else is going Puka. And on top of that, Kyren Williams is getting 24.3 DraftKings points from his matchup against Arizona. And, Stafford is at about 16.8. Typically, if you start Stafford, you want to start two of these guys like Kyren or Puka or Kupp. You want to pick two of those guys typically. But, if you had to pick two of those guys, Spread, which ones would you choose to go with Stafford?
For me, it's really hard to stay away from Kyren Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, he just seems like he's an automatic lock. When we do those anytime touchdown parlays, it just feels like he's a successful leg every single week. Yeah, I really like this Rams situation a lot. Do you think there's a chance that we get a no-show from Arizona, though, and then the Rams are coasting in the second half? I mean, I guess that'd be better for Kyren, not as good for the pass catchers.
I think it is possible, but I do think that they're going to be trying to they're playing for stats. I think Arizona at this point, so they're also playing a division rival.
Good point.
So they're not going to want to just let their division rival walk on them, but they are playing in LA on top of that. So there's just all sorts of things going pro LA in this one, but Arizona's capable of making this a competitive game, especially against a division rival. But that situation with the offensive line, like all being out, and James Conner was banged up. He was questionable. It looks like he's going to play, but I
have no idea why.
Yeah, it makes no sense. But
when you see him go out, it's funny. We talk about best ball, how high we are all on Trey Benson, and then you remember preseason start. Yep. And he looked like he was just running in mud. And you see how much that team loses with without James Conner in there. I'm really surprised they're running him out there.
Yeah. And Benson, he's Rams are giving up 22.1 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. So, depending on how much run you think Connor's going to get, maybe he just plays a quarter or something like that. Like, is there any milestones he's going for? Maybe there's some kind of a milestone he's going for.
I don't know about that.
Let's take a look at Connor's stats here. Looking at he's over 1,000 yards. He's got 8 touchdowns. The 1,000-yard mark would be the main one, and he's over that. So I don't know what kind of incentive he has, other than like with Connor, he's a dude who overcame cancer. So maybe he's just doing it out of pride, basically.
Yeah.
So. All right, Spread. Well, let's dig into this lineup build, and knowing the situation in all these games, which game do you want to target for our first stack here?
It's obviously one of the later games. Mm-hmm. Let's just start with our Chase Burrow stack.
Okay, we go with Burrow and Jamar Chase.
So now we're at 34.4. So we're gonna have to be, what's it called?
Cheap.
Yeah, I would say, do we like running back with Estimate there? I don't know. I don't think I'm running back with him in this build. All right, if we're starting here, where do we go next?
Well, I think if we're starting here, we might as well throw in our cheap tight end because we know, that's probably the direction. Like after
we're going to need him. All right, so which cheap tight end do we want?
It's going to be between Krull and Troutman. I'm going to lean towards Krull, I think. Let me take a look at
Krull. He's going to have less ownership.
Okay, so let me give you some numbers from Fantasy Points here. Okay, so as far as routes run, Krull's run 152 routes compared to 138 for Troutman. And Crow really came on, towards the latter part of the season. So he seems to be overtaking that role. He's had 21 targets versus 18 for Troutman. Targets per route run, 0.14 versus 0.13. But route percentage, the percentage of routes run is 34% for Kroll versus 24% for Troutman. So for me, I would tend to lean Kroll in this, but I think you can't really go wrong either way. I think you rotate these guys, but let's, for the sake of this lineup, Bill, let's go with Kroll.
All right. Sounds like a plan. So we have Kroll in there. Now we're doing a little better because we have 5,300 remaining, but of course we will be able to save a little bit of that money on the defense. Maybe will it kill us if we add Kupp and McBride?
Let's go with McBride in that flex. Let's see what that does for us.
All right. Now we're at 25 left. That's not that bad, actually. I didn't hurt us too bad.
I like the Rams defense as well with that situation with Kyler Murray.
Yep. All right. Well, now we're down to even the most expensive. That only took 3,200 off. So now we have 5,600 left per player. But we can do a couple studs and a couple. We're not really dumpster diving. Well, should we be dumpster diving here?
So I plugged in Williams, and let's get Kupp in there. You said Kupp, right? Spread a little earlier.
We're doing Williams and Kupp.
So if we do Williams and Kupp, right? So let's go back to that running back situation that we were talking about earlier with Kimani and Dobbins. And let's say Kimani is going to be in that situation where, he's just going to get a bigger portion of that workload. If we plug him in, that leaves us with 3,600. If we go down, that puts us in like a range of like some of these secondary Denver receivers. And we're looking at a stack with Burrow. We only have one run back, and it's the tight end. So maybe we want to look at a guy like Franklin, or let's see. Well, okay. So how about we do this, Spread? Let's get rid of the Rams D. Now there's a thing with Marvin Mims. He's getting a ton of targets when he's on the field. He's basically getting targeted every time he's on the field. I forgot to mention this with Mims. He's at 3,900. 5 targets, 4 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets for a 3,900 guy. If we're looking for a dude like on Denver to use as a run back, like Mims is going to make an interesting run back, I think. And where's that going to take us for our defense? That leaves us with Broncos, Cardinals, and Patriots as our defensive options. Do you have a preference on that?
That's tough, huh?
Yeah. I would probably lean with the Patriots, honestly, because there's a weather concern.
Yeah, there's a chance that game's like 10-3.
Yeah. Yeah, we got weather concerns with that game too. It looks like it's going to rain. I'm not sure how much, but that's something that if you're watching, you want to keep an eye out before the game starts, because we saw it last night with the torrential downpours in Chicago. It was supposed to be scattered showers. It was raining the whole freaking game, and it ended up being like a 6-3 game.
It was 6-3. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of offense in that game.
And we've seen it a couple times with these rain games recently, where I know we all talk about like like rain's not really a concern, but it's having a real effect on some of these scores, at least recently. So I don't hate the Patriots in this spot, and I think overall,
let's put the Patriots in there then.
Yeah, so Patriots would be that final spot. You got to leave that final spot empty, but it's not much to the imagination if you're watching this. Just plug in the Patriots if you want this lineup. But we got it's pretty decent because we got a decent exposure to both the games that we want. We got Burrow with Chase and running that back with those two Denver guys, the tight end and the Mims. And then we got on the other side, we got Williams running him back with McBride. And then the oddball is Vidal, and then we'd have the Patriots D. But Spread, is there anything that you want to try a little bit different with this lineup to kind of shift it around a little bit?
Now let's just start from scratch.
Okay.
Let's go a completely different way.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and hold on. Let me submit this one. You start us off, but I want to do a Rams stack to start is where I want to go with this one. So we went Patriots here, and we did the Vidal gamble, and I had 500 left. Yeah, that's the only thing I would say different. If I were to do anything different, I might go Estime over Vidal.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think in this build, you choose Vidal, and in this Rams build, we choose Estime.
All right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So
let's go with
I'm entering this one right now. And now we are going to build a Rams-based one, right? So we start Stafford. We'll do Estime because we know we're going to want him in there. I don't know why the one that I like to just throw a billion entries in isn't at the top of the screen anymore.
Yeah.
I think DraftKings sees all this money in my account from best ball, so they're trying to get me to play these huge contests. It's like, no, I want to just put a whole bunch of these smaller entries in because I'd rather have 15 lineups than 5 lineups.
Yeah.
Just the way that I play. Okay.
So yes, Spread did
I'm
well
back up again.
Spread did well with the $3 contest, turning into the first place
and with the amount I bet, let's just say there's a couple times we deaded out and we didn't get anything at all. Actually, I had very few games where we did not cash at least one lineup though.
Right.
But even if we do, it's it's the same as the rake of going 2 and 2 for me on there. So I think that's also easier for me to mentally handle. And then I also think that helps you when you're playing because you're more likely to be aggressive. If you're really worried about your bankroll in these higher level contests, you might not fire some of these wild ideas that we have. So, okay.
Yeah.
So we started with Stafford. We're going to add Estime.
Yep.
Hold on. Let me add just the Rams game up. Okay. Now on this one, do we want to put Nakua in there?
I can go with Nakua.
Let's just see how it builds out. Because we've almost just simulated our Burrow chase start, and we can go for a lot of the same players, or we can make this one different. What do you want to do next?
So I think I'm locked in on McBride pretty much. I just think that
they're gonna
be making an effort to get him involved, and he's got a decent match. It's a middling matchup, but it's still a guy of his skill set, he can overcome it. So McBride, and then I think as far as this game, if we have Matthew Stafford, we want to put another one of his weapons with him. So which one of his weapons do you want to put in this one, Spread?
Kyron.
Okay.
I mean, he's almost guaranteed a TD, it feels like.
Yeah. Against this Arizona's defense is horrible.
He's Kyron, one of the ones where I'm not really worried about ownership.
Yeah. Kyron is almost, I won't say a free square, but as far as the matchup on paper, it's the best spot.
Yeah, I don't think it's a free square. I mean, if he was sitting at 3,400, he'd be a free square.
Right.
I'd say he's just a high owned play that isn't going to come back to bite you most likely.
Yeah. All right. So we got Stafford. So I think we got our Rams Arizona game covered. So let's go try to fill out the rest of these spots. What do you think for these other wide receiver spots? We're looking at 4,400 left per spot. Maybe we want to put in our defense before we start getting into that, just to have an idea of where we're going to be. Do you want to go with the Patriots again?
Let's go Chargers. Let's go Chargers, and then we'll just switch it out if we need money.
Cool.
right?
All right, so yeah, 4,700 per remaining spot.
How do you want to go? Do you want to go one high price player and then two dart throws, or do you want to try and go even? I'm kind of leaning towards even here.
I don't hate going even, like depending on who we end up with. I also, I wouldn't be opposed to, like if we wanted to put in. Do you want to see what we're left with if we try to put in Chase? Let's see where that would leave us. 2,900. So
Yeah,
we can't really do that.
that's what I was thinking. If you put in Chase, I think you're sacrificing too much. You know who's standing out to me right now in this build is
Who's that?
Cortland Sutton.
Sutton, yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's gonna get a ton of targets.
Yeah.
Right, and he doesn't kill us. Now we're at 79 each for the last two.
So we probably.
No, 79 total for the last two.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that does kind of knock us down. Man.
See, it's tough, man. It's tough. It's tough when we.
You got
Bonet.
Bonet. You can do Mims, but I wouldn't want to do Mims and Sutton. You can do Iavasis. I don't know. I mean,
let's.
He had a good week last week, I guess.
Who did? Which one?
Iavasis. Let's try to put Iavasis in this one.
Okay, because we do need a Cincy guy like in this lineup. So
I hate where we land though here. We might have to take someone out. All right, so let's say we switch those defenses. That would move us up to 5,100. I don't really like where we land there either. I mean, I guess you can go Vidal, but I don't want to have that many risks. I feel like Vidal is kind of a dart throw for us.
Yeah.
Man.
How about this? How about this spread? How about we take out? I hate to take out Williams, but what if we take
I think we should. That was the number. That was one that was sticking out to me too.
Yeah.
If you take out Williams, you add Cup and just go all passing there, right? That actually makes more sense from a roster construction standpoint.
Right.
And now I'm at 50. Wow. I landed in the same spot. Unbelievable.
If we put Chase Brown in, for
you have to take back. Cortland's.
You want to knock him down to Mims?
Yeah, you take Sutton and you bring him to Mims.
All right, so let's knock him down to
Mims.
4,700.
And then if we do that, we have to switch out the defense. And the only one we could do a different one though. We don't have to do Patriots here.
Yeah, like we don't. So
looking at who we got, if you don't go Patriots, who would you go here?
If I don't go Patriots,
and Chargers is out. We can't afford Chargers.
Gotcha. Who do you have in that flex spot? Do you have someone in the flex already?
I put Cooper in there.
Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, because when we took Kyron out, we're going all offense there from Stafford.
Gotcha. So where am I different from you right now? If you look at my screen, I got Stafford, Estime, Brown, Nakua, Mims, Kupp, McBride, and Patriots D.
I have Iavasis in there.
Okay, so you kept him in. So let me put him in the flex. All right, so if we're looking at the defenses, I might probably Patriots, man, because I don't like the Cardinals defense against the Rams.
That's fine. I mean, we don't have to spend all the money. Let's do it. All right.
Yeah.
We got another lineup.
So if we did that, leaves us with 900. I think yes. I mean that's another direction to go. Like leaving money on the table is always a good way to get different too. You probably if you're gonna leave money on the table in a 3-game slate, try to leave at least 1,000, because I think people, once they hit those 4 figures, they start to get a little bit squirrely about it. But let's go with a let's try a Knicks or May lineup. Let's go with a Knicks lineup. If we got Knicks, We want him with Sutton, right? We want to run him back with Chase. And for the running
so what,
back
you're going
situation,
Knicks,
yeah,
Sutton.
Knicks,
If we go Knicks, we can do Mims too. Let's do
yeah,
Mims. We can take him out later.
yeah,
And then you want to run it back with Jamar Chase, not Chase Brown, right?
yeah. Jamar Chase, running
Right.
back
So
with
now
both.
we have a quarterback, 3 wide receivers, and we've only used half our money. It's a pretty good start.
So if we threw in
Let's just
Chase,
keep Trey McBride as our core.
okay.
Okay, so we got him in there. Now, which running backs do we want in this build? On this one, because we threw Mims in there, I don't want Estimate. Maybe we go back to Vidal. Or can we afford to just Kyron?
Let's go with Vidal.
You can't do that. Okay, you can't do Kyron or Chase. So we have to choose between Chase Brown or Kyron Williams here. Who would you rather have?
Let's go with Chase Brown. I think it fits better with what we're doing.
Okay.
We're basically going all in on that Denver game in this situation.
Okay.
Left with 42.
You know what? If you want to do Chase and Kyron, you just drop down to the budget tight end and get rid of McBride.
Yep. Yeah, we can do
You
that.
want to do that?
Yeah.
Where's our budget tight end? We decided Kroll.
Yeah.
Actually, that fits better on this build.
Yeah, okay. It gives us another guy to stack with Knicks. And then Kyron, yeah, it's perfect. And then we'd have an extra 300 for our defense. So if we wanted to swap out to the Cardinals, we could.
You have one person in there. I don't have. Oh no, you don't. Okay, so who are we running in the flex in this lineup?
I think the flex is Kyron in this. Like Kyron and McBride.
Oh, you put Vidal back in there.
Oh yeah. Hey, let me take Vidal out. Let me put Kyron.
Yeah, let's just look at what other options we'd have if we run with the flex. You know what? There's not a lot in that range. I mean, unless we're just doing the full Denver blowout script, I guess you could throw Estimate in there. If somebody gets a touchdown, he's going to pay you off. In this build, do you think Estimate or Vidal is better?
Vidal. I think we got a little too much Denver, but I don't hate using Estimate if you wanted to go in that direction. It might be a rotational situation.
Yeah, I think he's more likely to end up in the end zone.
Yeah. Then at 5K, like I don't mind that at all.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, let's put Estimate in that flex. Let's take a look, see if there's any other cheap tight ends. Parkinson, Kroll, Hurst, Fisk, Castles, Tomlinson. Yeah, I don't see anyone. Like, yeah, my favorite tight ends might be, rolling the dice on one of those. Apart from McBride, is rolling the dice on one of those cheap guys. One thing that we could do if we wanted to do double tight end too, we could go McBride. If you wanted to, I don't like swapping out Williams. I have more confidence in Williams than McBride this week. So there's a few different ones. You want to do a Drake May one real quick, Spread?
Of course.
All right, let's do a Drake May one. All right, so Drake May, he's going to save us a ton of salary. He's down at 5,800. We put Drake May in there. Which one of these receivers? Because I think receiver is probably the best. Like, or we run him naked. Like, what do you prefer, Spread? Do you think we should stack him with somebody or run him naked?
Let's try naked, and then we'll see if we're getting to that weird price point. We'll fill it in.
Yeah,
we'll go back to the Patriots then.
If we did want to plug in another guy with him, Antonio Gibson, has been getting more work.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Do that? Okay.
All right.
So
we'll start with May Gibson.
All right. So in this one, I don't. I probably want to run it back. And I think that, given the uncertainty of that running back position, I think that McConkey is probably the best way to run this one back.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so we got McConkey in there. And I think that's plenty of exposure. I don't think we need any more exposure to this game. We don't need to go too heavy on it. I think having the classic single stack with a run back is fine. So let's see, where do we want to go from here, Spread? Do we want to go with Jamar Chase as an expensive guy, or do you like Kyron or McBride?
Kind of like Kyron more because I feel like I get the guaranteed touchdown.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm in that same way of thinking. So we got Kyron. Now we're looking at 4,900 per remaining spot. Maybe we plug in a defense just so we have a better idea. Rams.
We stay away from Patriots here.
Yeah. I think with this one we could put
we don't
the
want
Patriots
Chargers either. So
what would be interesting if we put the Patriots defense in here is typically the correlation with the running back position.
Okay, let's try. We'll try that, and then we could reevaluate later. Okay, so we have 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver, a quarterback, and a defense.
Yep.
How much can we afford?
I think we can put in
Cup here.
Cup, yeah. All right, let's get Cup in there. We can put in, I think, one more expensive guy. So do you have an expensive guy between McBride and Chase that you want to try out?
Chase?
All right, let's get Chase in there. Tight end.
We have to dumpster dive here. Who's our guy? Kroll.
If Kroll hits, man, we're going to be in really good shape. Leave us with 5K.
Now we land right on
your guy Estime.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so we'd have Estime in there. Now, if we look at it, we got our Denver guys with the run back with Jamar Chase. We have the New England and Chargers game lightly stacked. We got our Rams representation with Cup and Williams. I don't care if we have any Arizona guys in because who knows what they're going to show up as. And this gives us a situation where we're playing only teams that have something to play for, apart from like Drake May, obviously. But the rest of these guys have something to meaningful to play for. So I do like how this one kind of comes along. I do like going cheap at the quarterback position. We've seen May, like what he's done. Even recently, he's scoring about like 20 DraftKings points a game. He's only 58K. So that's going to get us, like the upside potential. It looks like 22 points is his highest upside on the season. I would say against the Chargers defense, maybe we see him in that, 18, 19 point range this week, depending on if they show up to play or if they have a decent game, but they're playing in New England. So there's definitely potential for that.
Yeah, I definitely like this. I think this last build is the most fun.
Yeah. I love going cheap with these running backs. I mean, quarterbacks.
And who's going to target this game? Let's just say you wake up on Saturday morning. You're enjoying the game. If you're out here on the West Coast, you're still having coffee. Simon, you've probably moved on to just more sparkling water or whatever you enjoy. But if this game ends up, 37-24 or something, we're just going to be like, yeah.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean,
and sometimes that happens, right? Because the weather, sometimes we go, oh, the weather's going to ruin things. Well, it ruins things for the defense because they can't cover anybody, right? You see the guy and his defender just falls, and so he just gets a wide open route to the touchdown. Weather doesn't always, most of the time it's lower scoring, but there are the cases where it goes there, and I feel like this is like a fun way to account for that possibility.
Yeah, I think so. I think we got a good build here. I think we built a few good lineups. Spread, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your content?
I'm on X at Spread Astaire right now. I've been kind of laying low. as far as the stuff I've been putting out, but you'll still have the weekly shows, and I'm still doing articles. In fact, when we get off, I'm going to write one of my favorite ones this week in sports betting, which is always a fun one for me because I can write about whatever I want. So follow me on X at Spread Astaire.
Yeah, and you can get that article's on Keg's
Yeah.
website,
Nuke
right?
the House. Yeah.
Nuke the House. Yep.
Mhm.
So good stuff there, Spread. Thanks for joining me. Make sure to hit that like button. Get me to 30 likes so we can put out a shorter video later on. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. You want to subscribe to get the alerts for when these other shows come out. Having a day job has completely screwed up my schedule, so I'm not sure when these shows come out half the time. So hit the subscribe and sign up for the alerts on that. And thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you again soon.